Hope you all had a happy and safe 4th of July. It was a UFC-less weekend, but still saw title fights in Cage Fury FC, Titan FC, and LFA. And don't worry, the big show is back this weekend with the trilogy fight. Welcome to Cage Minds MMA show. Hi, I'm Micah Frankel. Let's get started by looking back at some highlights from last weekend's action. Start off with looking back at Titan FC 70 main event, middleweight title fight, Shane O'Shea versus Bruno Aries. O'Shea landing the knockdown early, looking like he has Aries off balance. Aries able to land the judo tosses. It's about 3 of them continuing to put O'Shea on the ground. O'Shea jumping in for a single leg. Aries steps over, looks like he's going for the armbar, transitions it into a triangle, locks it down, gets the tap. Your new Titan FC middleweight champion. Also Friday night, we had LFA action. LFA 110 got to start early on with the first fight of the night. Oscar Herrera, he got the takedowns early, then he's put on his back by Arpan Gurung, and Gurung is then stuck in an armbar and forced to tap. It was a quick switch of the hips and a lockup of the submission for the tap. Jacqueline Amorium and the acclaimed jiu-jitsu practitioner shows off for striking. It's a big right hand for the knockdown, a couple follow-up shots, and Megan Owen is out. The knockout in just 10 seconds. Your main event, interim flyweight title fight, Charles Johnson versus Yuma Horiguchi, and it was early on a battle of the kicks. Both guys exchanging leg kicks like crazy. Horiguchi continually pressing forward, pressing the action. Tide would change as a right hand from Johnson would sting and start Horiguchi stumbling to end that first round. The second round, Horiguchi does himself no favors as a low blow leads to a point deduction. I thought that Horiguchi did himself well in the third and fourth rounds, pressuring forward, looking to work the body. In the fifth round is when we started to see the damage pile up. It was the Johnson right cross, left hook that would see swelling throughout the face of Horiguchi and bust up the nose. When we get to the judges, they return us a split decision, and your new interim LFA flyweight champion is Charles Johnson. And now we wait to see what happens with Victor Altamirano and the Contender Series. Will he get a contract with the UFC? Does he come back and look to unify the title? On Saturday night, up in Philadelphia, it was the welterweight title on the line in the main event of CFFC 98. The defending champion, Evan Cutts, against Johan Linus, the challenger. And it was a striking affair where early on it was the technical style of Johan with his long single strikes against kind of the brawling pressure style that Cutts was trying to bring. 5 minutes in, it looked like there was heavy breathing, not to mention a big cut over the left eye of Johan, and it looked like everything was going well for the champion. Second round starts up, and that's when Linus is able to find the body shot, and that's what changes the tide. Having Cutts hurt, chasing him down against the cage, the uppercut was huge. The right uppercut, and then just bombing away with the hooks to the body, forcing the ref to jump in, a standing stoppage as Cutts was going with the high guard defense and kind of just barreled over. You have a new CFFC welterweight champion, and in somewhat controversial fashion, as it was a standing TKO from body shots. There hadn't been a clear knockdown, but the referee felt that Cutts was overwhelmed, and that's all she wrote. Turn our attention to this week's fight announcements, and the UFC has made a plethora of them. Start off with July 24th in women's flyweight action. Priscilla Cachoeira is out, and Sijara Eubanks will now be facing Elise Reed at the UFC Fight Night event. Juan Camilo Honduras is out, and Ryan Benoit is stepping in. That's a flyweight bout to take on Zurich Adeshev at the UFC Fight Night on July 31st. Amir Albazidi is out, and Manel Camp has stepped in to face Odie Osborne at UFC 265 on August 7th. That is also a flyweight bout. A welterweight bout has been rebooked. Sean Brady versus Kevin Lee will now be on the UFC Fight Night on August 28th. That card also has gained Jim Miller versus Nicholas Mota at lightweight, and has seen Askar Moharov have to pull out, and Dustin Jacoby will now be taking on Darren Stewart. Jonathan Martinez versus Nathaniel Wood, a bantamweight bout. Mark DeCasey versus Rafael Alves, a lightweight bout. Paul Craig versus Alexander Gustafsson, that one in the light heavyweight division, have all been announced for the UFC Fight Night on September 4th. Penny Kinzad versus Raquel Pennington in a women's bantamweight matchup, and Ipa Kasanya versus Carlton Harris in welterweight action have both been added to the UFC Fight Night on September 18th. Making her flyweight debut, Tatiana Suarez will be returning to action against Roxanne Modafferi at UFC 266 on September 25th. In featherweight action, San Soriano is going to be taking on Fernando Padilla, and in lightweight action, Grant Dawson faces Diego Ferreira. Both of those fights are added to the UFC Fight Night on October 2nd. Chris Gutierrez versus Felipe Corrales, a bantamweight bout, has been added to the UFC Fight Night on October 9th. And Ludwig Klein versus Nate Landwehr has been added to the UFC Fight Night on October 16th. Now, in a couple bits of local news, haven't mentioned the New Mexico local scene in quite a while because the state hadn't been open. There was nothing really to talk about. Professional boxing will be returning on July 31st. Mescalero, New Mexico, Josh Pitbull Torres in the main event of that card. And then on August 7th, School of Hard Knocks Promotions is bringing boxing back to Hobbs. The main event will see unbeaten Mario Gonzalez. And then the card will also be featuring the first ever sanctioned bare knuckle boxing match in New Mexico state history. That fight will be seeing Levi Lucero against Anthony Sanchez. And for those of you wondering when we're going to be seeing MMA locally, Southwest MMA Series has announced September 18th they'll be back at Buffalo Thunder. The main event, Jesse Martinez versus Jason Mullen. The card will also see a pair of LFA vets on it, Josh Moreno versus Austin Jones, and Javier Cepeda versus Anthony Valenzuela. And it's the moment you've all been waiting for. Let's talk about it. This Saturday in Las Vegas, the trilogy that has taken us around the world. UFC 264 is this Saturday. McGregor Poirier 3. The first encounter in Ireland, the second in Abu Dhabi, and the trilogy now will be finalized here in America, in Las Vegas. It's the UFC's return to the T-Mobile Arena and a return to a crowd in Las Vegas. As we know, they've been there at the Apex all along, but now we get to see bodies screaming at the Octagon. It was just a couple months ago. It was just when they started welcoming people back in the arena in Yas Island. The last time we saw the two fight, it was the maiden voyage, the first event at the Etihad Stadium. The first time they met, it was the UFC's debut in Ireland, going to Ireland because of Conor McGregor. This is a trilogy that has went around the world. But the third fight, in much different circumstances than the sequel. The first fight in 2014. The sequel, not until 2021. Here we are 6 months later with part 3 having to be completed. There was a hunger, a necessity, and also a realization from all parties that this was the most lucrative fight that could be put together. So this one was put together post haste, in quick fashion. Their last fight was the sequel. How much has each fighter changed in 6 months? Because I believe that going into the sequel, McGregor and Poirier were obviously much different individuals than who they were in 2014. Much different fighters. Again, featherweights now up to lightweights. Conor had forays into 170 pounds. They both knew what championship caliber was like. They both had evolved and developed in such plentiful ways that they were totally different fighters than the first meeting to the second. But now we're just 6 months removed from that sequel, and let's be honest, heading into that sequel at the primes of their careers that they're at, you're looking at pretty polished products at this point. You're thinking, how many giant changes, giant improvements is each one going to make in their game for the rest of their career when they've already gotten to this championship status? Not many guys continue to add to the toolbox at that point. We've seen Poirier go from a guy that had heavy hands and was really known to be dangerous with his submission game to a guy that's an outstanding boxer. His kicks are dangerous, and he's adding in that wrestling element. Where Conor McGregor came in as a karate stylist that would pull you with his right hand, with his jab hand, into his big left hand and would knock you off. Not to mention he was wicked with his front teep kicks and would bring behind a high kick and a low kick, kind of in a traditional karate style. What they've evolved to, both boxers, a lot more boxing centric. Conor McGregor, that was done purposefully, looking after his fights with Nate Diaz and winning the title over Eddie Alvarez into the bigger picture, into being a prize fighter and looking at matchups with Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao. So you saw a due diligence put into the boxing training that Conor McGregor went from about 2016 to, it seemed like, just after the loss with Dustin Poirier. For the last 5 years, Conor has dedicated himself into changing his style into more of a boxing-centric striking style because he was expecting some lucrative paydays against boxers. How much can that be corrected in 6 months? 5 years of trying to become a boxer to now need to divert his attention and take a step back to the karate fire stance that he was in previously. Wonderboy Thompson, who is on this card also in the co-main event, had suggested that's where McGregor will have success. I believe he's correct. McGregor has to be a lot lighter on his feet. He cannot just rely on checking kicks to be his saving grace against Dustin Poirier, because if you're Poirier, you have to expect that what you did in the first fight was the right tactics. You have to attack at every level. That's the low kicks. That's attacking the wrestling, and that is being active in the clinch, not to mention then firing off with your shots from range with your boxing. McGregor has to become that karate fighter again. He was much more nimble, he was much more mobile, and he had much better dexterity when he was focused on being a karate fighter, not to mention he did do good things in that first fight. Don't want to just beat him up because he lost. When you saw early on and they were testing each other, just standing at boxing range, going shot for shot, I do believe you were seeing McGregor with the faster hands. And there was something to also be seen that as Poirier was coming straight down the middle with his jab, McGregor is having big success countering with looping shots, either with the uppercut or the hook coming around the Poirier guard. I do believe that McGregor has that speed advantage, but he has to be lighter, nimble. And I also question how we'll see a different McGregor when, once again, he prepared for this fight in Dubai. The way Conor McGregor came up and became successful was with guys like Dylan Dennis, Artem Lobov by his side, working hard in Ireland. Lobov, from what I've heard, is still there in Ireland. Dylan Dennis is in California now. It seems to be a different team around Conor McGregor, so that leaves questions about the level of competition and the level of guys that were pushing him in the training room. We understand the coaching staff is incredible, but who were the guys pushing him in the training room? It needed to be different guys than we saw at UFC 257. Dustin Poirier, we don't have to worry about that. He has the solid team from American Top Team. He has the incredible coaching and foundation that he has been around for the last several years. And let's not forget the bigger overview of these two guys. This is a number one contenders fight. The winner is going to fight Charles Oliveira for the UFC Lightweight Championship. That is going to be huge. Also, these two guys are finishers, so this is going to be an incredibly fun fight. Both guys, each 20 finishes. It's Dustin Poirier with 7 submissions and 13 knockouts. Conor McGregor, 19 knockouts, 1 submission. That submission way back in 2012. From concentrating on boxing to winning most of his fights by knockouts, you see that there's more of a focus on Conor McGregor in the striking arts, and that's why you diligently believe that there is an advantage for Poirier when this does hit the mat. Credit to McGregor in the first fight. They hit the mat. McGregor able to shuck off Poirier, get back to his feet, and then was able to stuff every takedown that came after. You have to be expecting that shot. You have to be expecting the leg kicks. It's kind of a funny thing to say, but if you're McGregor, you really have to be expecting that Dustin Poirier can throw anything at you in the mixed martial arts realm. That's what he does. Talking about recent success, Conor McGregor has had a lot of financial success. Proper 12 has done amazing. He did gangbusters with the Floyd Mayweather fight, but in the MMA arena, he's only 3-3 in his last 6. Well, Dustin Poirier has come into his own at 155 pounds and has won 6 of his last 7. Look forward to a great main event. The co-main event, this is a top 5 matchup at 170 pounds as number 2 Gilbert Durinho Burns takes on number 4 Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Burns has won 6 of his last 7. You know Durinho is hungry to get back in the win column after falling short of taking the title from his former training partner Kamaru Usman. While on the other side, Wonderboy Thompson, who had lost 2 in a row, has now ran off back-to-back decision wins over the likes of Vicente Luque and Jeff Neal, 2 top 10 welterweights in their own right. Impressive victories were the counter-striking and just tactical mastery of the karate expert Wonderboy Thompson was on display. His timely explosions and blitzes inside of offense with his straight punches, and not to mention those side kicks that keep you at bay. Early on, he took away the vision of Jeff Neal and then put on a dynamic performance, even though Neal was looking for the knockout. That's why you love this matchup, because in that same fashion, Gilbert Burns is not scared of anybody. He ran headfirst into taking on Kamaru Usman. Burns is the kind of guy that got to where he is because he's not scared of anybody. He has faith in both of his hooks, power in both hands, and not to mention his black belt in jiu-jitsu if he can get this one to the ground. Do you see the vintage Wonderboy performance, or do we get to see that big brawling performance from Gilbert Burns? That one could be very exciting, or it could be a surgical dissection. Also on the main card, we got heavyweights. Taia Tuivasa takes on Greg Hardy. 12 wins for Tuivasa, 10 knockouts, all in the first round. Greg Hardy, 7 wins, 6 knockouts, 5 in the first round. That's exciting stuff. 135-pound women division. It's also a top 5 matchup on that main card. You have Irene Aldana coming in at number 4, taking on Yana Kunitskaya, who comes in at number 5, with Holly Holm on the shelf and just getting back to training. You could speculate the winner of this one here could earn a shot with Amanda Nunes. It's a possibility. The main card also has Sean O'Malley taking on short notice replacement Chris Montini. Both guys are strikers. This is going to be obviously advantage O'Malley, but Montini has skills and will be willing to get in there and mix it up. Carlos Condit is going to be taking on Max Griffin on the prelims. Griffin back-to-back knockout wins over Ramiz Brahima and Kenang Song has put him on the map, gave him the opportunity to call for this fight against a legend that I believe he has shared the training room with before. Condon has been looking great again. He's coming off of consecutive decision wins over Court McGee and Matt Brown. As long as Condon can keep the fight standing, you feel he has the tactical advantage, even though Griffin has demonstrated big power. Talking about big power and possibility for an explosive finish, Nico Price versus Mizel Pereira is on the prelims. Price has knocked guys out with hammer fists from his back before. He has done all kinds of phenomenal things. A finisher at all costs. Will Mizel Pereira, flying knees, acrobatic, and can tactically take you apart from the outside if he can remain calm. Another one that's intriguing, as I'm going to go down this whole card that's intriguing, at 145 pounds, you got Ryan Hall against unbeaten Ilir Topuria. Ryan Hall, it's a confounding style. He will fall down from punches coming at you to try to suck you into the grappling world, where, he's even submitted with a heel hook. BJ Penn, a once-in-a-level kind of grappler, is Ryan Hall, coming off of wins over Darren Elkins, Gray Maynard. He's put some big names on his resume. Ilir Topuria is coming off of a knockout, not to mention in his debut, we saw him out-wrestle Youssef Zalal. So we've seen his Greco-Roman wrestling background, and we've seen big power punching. Topuria may be the guy to make Ryan Hall fight a different style finally. In women's flyweight action, a top 10 matchup will put number 4 Jennifer Maia up against number 7 Jessica Ai. Maia, Muay Thai expert, solid jiu-jitsu. We've seen her pull off the surprise submission victory before. Ai, she likes to keep standing, likes to work with her boxing. Another and the last ranked matchup on the card, or what will that night be the first ranked matchup that you see. In the middleweight division, a top 15 matchup. Omari Akhmedov, number 13, takes on number 15, Brad Tavares. Akhmedov launches big shots, wants to get on the inside and drag the fight to the ground. Well, Tavares is a tactical, technical striker, wants to throw his 1-2s, finish up with a leg kick, keep his distance, and pick you apart. Also got a shot out in the flyweight division. Zuglas Zugmalov is going to be taking on Jerome Rivera. Zugmalov is going to want to pressure and try to get on the inside. Look for Rivera to use his length and keep this one at distance. And if it hits the ground with his long legs, Rivera has a sick triangle armbar combination. How do you watch the event? Early prelims, 6 p.m. Eastern on UFC Fight Pass. The middle prelims at 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN and ESPN+. And then 10 p.m. Eastern is the pay-per-view on ESPN+. I'll be tweeting about it at Caged Minds MMA. You can also check us out on Facebook, Caged Minds Combat Sports News. On Instagram, it's CagedMinds_CSN. Visit the website, please. It'd be much appreciated, CagedMinds.com. The YouTube channel is Caged Minds MMA Show, and check out Caged Minds wherever you listen to your favorite podcast to hear Micah Frankel's Caged Minds, or to listen to an audio version of this very show. Thanks for watching.